The year was 2087 and humanity had finally achieved faster-than-light travel. After decades of research and countless failed attempts, the discovery came from a small team of scientists working in an underground laboratory in Nevada. The first FDL ship, the UVS Frontier, was built into orbit around the Earth and sent on its maiden voyage with Captain John Miller, and Captain Miller was a calm man with gray hair and steady hands. He was chosen for his level of thinking and experience with first contact protocols. Frontier's mission was simple: explore the nearest star systems and collect data. No one expected them to encounter aliens on their first trip. The ship was 3 weeks into its journey when sensors picked up an unusual energy signature. It wasn't natural. The patterns were very regular, very precise. Miller ordered the ship to approach with caution. "All seasons, yellow alert," he said, rising from the captain's chair. "We will not make sudden movements." The crew watched in awe as a huge ship appeared. It was unlike anything humans had designed, smooth and curved, with sections that seemed to flow into each other like liquid metal. Before Miller could decide what to do, a message came through the communication system. "Greetings, travelers. We represent the Galactic Council. We have been monitoring your system for some time and have noticed that you have reached FTL capability. We welcome you to the large community of space species." Within days, the Earth was buzzing with the news. Governments struggled to respond. The United Nations quickly appointed Ambassador Lisa Clark as humanity's first representative to this Galactic Council. Lisa was smart and careful. She has worked in international diplomacy for 15 years and understands the importance of first impressions. As she prepared for her first meeting with the Council, she reviewed what little information they had shared about themselves. The Council consisted of 12 main species, each with their unique biology and culture. They had worked together for over 1,000 years, managing trade, resolving conflicts, and sharing technology. Humans were the 27th species to join since the Council's founding. When Lisa arrived at the Council's massive space station, she was greeted by representatives of all 12 main species. Some looked almost human, while others were completely alien, from floating gas clouds to insect-like beings with multiple limbs. During the initial meetings, Lisa noticed something interesting. When Council members discussed interspecies conflicts, they never mentioned wars. They talked about diplomatic negotiations, ritual combats between champions, and even mathematical competitions to resolve disputes. "And how does your species typically resolve major conflicts?" asked Zalter, a tall, blue-skinned being who led the Council. Lisa hesitated. "Earth's history has been filled with wars, bloody and brutal conflicts that killed millions of people." She decided to be selective with the truth. "We prefer diplomatic solutions when possible," she said carefully. "We have developed many methods for peacefully resolving conflicts." That wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Lisa did not mention the world wars nor the countless regional conflicts that have shaped human history. She didn't tell them that humans had developed weapons that could destroy entire cities, or that military strategy had been studied extensively on Earth. Over the next few months, Lisa learned more about the Council species. Most had experienced small conflicts in their distant past, but nothing on the scale of human wars. The concept of nations fighting nations across entire continents seemed strange to him. It is primitive and unnecessary. As human diplomats embedded in Council society, they were careful about the parts of human history they shared. Lisa instructed her team to emphasize human art, science, and philosophy. "Today, our long history of war. We're on probation," she told her team during a private meeting. "Until we understand our place here, we need to do our best." What Lisa didn't know was that the Council was already increasingly curious about the parts of human history that weren't being shared, and they would soon discover how different humans really were. 6 months after first contact, junior diplomat Alan Garcia arrived at the Council's main station. Alan was young, curious, and passionate about history. While other human diplomats focused on trade agreements and technological exchanges, Alan spent his free time exploring Masset Station. One day, Alan discovered the Council's historical archives. The room was huge, filled with data terminals that contained the collected knowledge of all the Council species. Alan was given permission to study these files and began spending hours there every day. "You seem very interested in our stories," said a voice behind Alan one afternoon. Alan turned to find a Melanorian named Zik Stoll watching him. The Melanorians looked like tall, thin humans, with light blue skin and large eyes. Zixtol was the council's chief historian. "I find that fascinating," said Alan. "Each species has a different path to space travel." Zixtol sat next to Alan. "And humans? Your ambassador Clark shared some information, but it seems incomplete." Alan felt uncomfortable. He knew the guidelines. Don't focus on Earth's wars or military history. But he also valued honesty. "Our story is complex," Alan said carefully. "Like many species, we have had conflicts in the past." Over the next few weeks, Alan and Zixtol developed a friendship. They exchanged stories about their home worlds and cultures. Gradually, Alan began to share more about human history, carefully selecting which conflicts to discuss. Then their countries fought for resources and territories. Zix's full question after hearing about the American Civil War. "Yes, but also about ideas and ways of life." Alan explained. "The Civil War was in part about whether humans could possess other humans." Zixtol's big eyes widened. "Such a concept is disturbing. But the idea that you would fight to end this practice is admirable." As the conversations continued, Alan shared more stories. The American Revolution, the fall of Rome, the Mongol Empire. He avoided mentioning world wars or nuclear weapons, focusing instead on how conflicts have sometimes led to positive change. What Alan didn't know was that Zixtol was recording these conversations and sharing them with the board's leadership. The aliens were becoming increasingly fascinated by human resilience. No other species has faced so many challenges and survived. Zixtol told the board during a private meeting. "Humans fight, yes, but they also rebuild and grow stronger. There is a lot we could learn from them." Some board members disagreed. "Their history suggests they are dangerous," said Krell, a reptilian leader. "We should monitor them more closely." The council secretly increased surveillance of human space. They watched broadcasts from Earth, studied human literature, and analyzed military files that their computers could access. What they found alarmed them. Meanwhile, Alan continued his work on the archives, unaware of the growing concern. One day he found records of a species called Vexari, which lives close to human space. Vexari are territorial but avoid direct conflict. Zixtol explained when Alan asked about them. "They prefer to set clear boundaries and keep them strictly." "That seems reasonable," said Alan. "Have they ever caused problems for the council?" Zixtol hesitated. "They are not technically board members. They interact with us when necessary, but prefer isolation. These are territorial borders of what is today human space." Alan felt a shiver. "Have you informed our leaders about this?" "I believe your ambassador Clark has been informed," Zixtol said. "It's not an immediate concern. The Vexari rarely engage with new species, but even as they spoke, Ort representatives were coming from the border between human space and Vexari space. Human colony ships have been spotted near Vexari territory. The aliens sent warnings, which the humans either did not understand or chose to ignore. The council watched with growing concern. They had seen what happened when stronger species invaded weaker ones, but they had never seen what happened when someone challenged humans. They were about to find out. 5 years have passed since humans joined the Galactic community. At that time, they established colonies on 3 planets beyond their home system. The most distant colony was on Proxima, a rocky world that orbits the star closest to Earth. Sunday Commander Nickel Wright stood on the bridge of the US Defender, looking at the stars through the main screen. She was a tall woman, with short brown hair and eyes that didn't miss anything. The Defender was a military vessel disguised as a research vessel. The Council did not need to know about his true purpose. "Commander, we have received another message from the Vexari ships," your communications officer said. "They are demanding that we leave this sector immediately." Nickel frowned. The Vexari had been sending threats for weeks. They claimed that Proxima was within their territory, despite human research showing that it was unclaimed space when the colony was established. "Send our standard response," Nickel ordered. "Remind them that we are operating in a recognized neutral space and that we have no hostile intentions." His orders from Earth were clear. Show restraint. Ambassador Clark was still working to build trust with the board. Conflict with another species would not help these efforts. The next morning, Nickel was woken by alarms. She rushed to the bridge to find her crew at battle stations. 3 Vexari ships entered orbit around Proxima. His first officer reported. "They are launching landing craft towards the colony." Nickel's training began immediately. Interception course. Just ready-made defensive systems. contact the colony, and ask them to activate emergency protocols. The Defender moved quickly, positioning itself between the Vexery ships and the colony. On the viewing screen, Nickel could see the Vexery ships. They were angular and dark, with sharp protrusions like thorns. "Open a channel," she ordered. When the connection was established, she spoke clearly. "Vexery ships, this is Commander Wright of the US Defender. You are approaching a human settlement. Withdraw immediately, or we will be forced to defend our people." The answer came quickly. "Humans don't belong here. The weak must give way to the strong. This is the natural order." Before Nickel could respond, bolts of energy were launched from the Vexery ships towards the colony below. Defense shields absorbed most of the attack, but sensors showed damage to the other buildings. "They are shooting at civilians," Nickel's weapons officer said, his voice tight with anger. Nickel made his decision. Target only their weapon systems. Deactivate, do not destroy. What followed was unlike anything else that Council observers had already seen. The Defender moved with impossible precision, avoiding Vexery attacks while landing precise attacks on his weapon arrays. Nickel's crew worked as a single organism, anticipating orders before they were given. Within 17 minutes, all 3 Vexery ships were adrift. Their weapons were disabled, and their propulsion systems damaged. None of them were destroyed. The colony below reported only minor damage and no casualties. Nickel opened communications again. "Vexery ships, you attacked a peaceful settlement without provocation. We could destroy you, but that is not our way. Remove yourself from this system and do not return." The Vexery ships limped away, sending furious messages that the humans ignored. What Nickel didn't know was that Council observers had recorded everything. The footage quickly spread throughout the Council space. Species that had never seen real combat watched in awe and horror as humans demonstrated increased military efficiency. An emergency board meeting was called. Ambassador Clark was summoned to explain what they had witnessed. "The precision of the human response suggests military training beyond what you disclosed," said Salter, the Council leader. His ship disabled 3 vessels in minutes without casualties. This level of tactical skill comes only from experience. Lisa Clark knew that the careful balance she had maintained for 5 years was about to collapse. The Council was about to discover humanity's greatest secret and greatest shame. "I believe," she said carefully, "that it's time to have an honest conversation about human history." The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Lisa Clark finished her presentation. For 3 hours, she showed images and videos selected from Earth's military history. She was careful not to show the worst horrors, but what she revealed was quite shocking. Senior investigator Frank Delgado was at her side. Frank was a stocky man with a serious face and 20 years of military experience before joining the diplomatic corps. The Council appointed him to work with its investigators on examining human military capabilities. "So you're saying," Salter said slowly, "that your Second World War involved more than 30 countries and killed more than 50 million beings." "Yes," Lisa said calmly. "It was the deadliest conflict in our history." The Council members looked at each other in disbelief. Their species has experienced conflict, but nothing on this scale. The idea of entire planets at war was beyond his comprehension. "And after this war," continued Krell, the Reptilian Council member, "his country built weapons that could destroy entire cities." Frank stepped forward. "Yes, but we also created organizations to prevent the use of such weapons. We learned from our mistakes." The investigation continued for weeks. Frank worked closely with alien counterparts, explaining human military history while trying to emphasize humanity's progress toward peace. But the more the aliens learned, the more worried they became. "Your species has developed something called guerrilla warfare?" asked Ziv, a small furry investigator from a species called Talari. "Yes," Frank explained. "It is a way for smaller forces to fight larger forces, using surprise attacks and quick retreats. And in this Cold War, you threatened each other with destruction for decades without actually fighting," asked another investigator. Frank nodded. "It wasn't our best moment, but it ended peacefully." Each revelation brought new concerns. The Council learned about humane concepts such as total war, psychological operations, and strategic bombing. They studied human generals, from Alexander the Great to Napoleon and Patton. During one session, Frank showed the board members a simple chessboard. "This game has been played on Earth for more than 1,000 years," he explained. "Children learn. It's a game of strategy and tactics, of sacrifice and patience. Do your children joke about the war? Asked a shocked board member. Frank realized he wasn't helping his case. Meanwhile, Lisa was fighting a political battle. Some species on the council advocated the containment of humanity, restricting human ships to their own star system and limiting their contact with other species. They are very dangerous, Krell argued during a council debate. His entire story is built around conflict. They think in terms of winners and losers, of conquering and being conquered. Others were more moderate. Humans have shown restraint, said Mira, a member of the gas-based council. Commander Wright could have destroyed those vexatious ships, but she chose not to. Lisa worked tirelessly, building alliances with more supportive board members. She emphasized the art, literature, and philosophy of humanity. She shared stories of human peacemakers and humanitarians. Frank focused on practical matters. Containing humans would require enormous resources, he told the council, and that would turn a potential ally into an enemy. Is this what you want? As the investigation drew to a close, Frank and Lisa prepared for the board's final decision. They knew that the future of humanity in the galaxy was at stake. What they didn't know was that events far from Earth would soon change everything. At the outer edge of the council's space, a new threat emerged, one that would test the council's peaceful principles. That night, as Frank was reviewing his notes for the next day's session, he received an urgent message from Lisa. "Come to my office immediately," it said. "The council has just received a distress call. We may have bigger problems than our investigation." Frank rushed to Lisa's office and found her with 3 board members. Their faces were grim as they watched a holographic display showing a battle in space. "What am I looking at?" Frank asked. The Artisan Collective said Excel Tor, a kind of beyond the council space. They began attacking our outer colonies. The hologram showed sleek black ships firing at a peaceful settlement. The council's defense ships tried to protect the colony, but they were destroyed one by one. The ship ignored all attempts at communication. Mirat explained. 3 colonies have already been destroyed. Thousands are dead. Lisa looked at Frank with concern in her eyes. The council has never faced an enemy like this. Its military forces are limited. Frank understood immediately. The peaceful species of the council had little experience with real wars. Your ships were designed for defense, not attack. Their crews were not trained for combat. We called this meeting, Zalter said, turning to face them, because we need your help. 2 days later, Frank and Lisa appeared before the full council. Research into human military history has been suspended. Now the council wanted to know if humans could help stop the ship. "You have seen our military capabilities," Lisa said. "We believe we can help, but we would need to use tactics that you can find." "Disturbing. What exactly are you proposing?" asked Krell, who was one of humanity's greatest critics. Admiral Olivia Martinez stepped forward. Olivia was a tall woman, with dark hair streaked with gray. She commanded Earth's space forces for 5 years and was taken to the council station to assess the situation. "I propose a joint task force," she said. "A small fleet of human ships working with their best vessels. We would engage the ship in a limited operation to demonstrate that further attacks would cost them dearly." The board members looked uncomfortable. "Does that mean you want to fight them?" asked one. "Yes," Olivia said simply. "Sometimes the only way to avoid a bigger war is to show your strength in a smaller war." The debate lasted hours. Some council members refused to consider military action. Others saw no alternative. "If we do nothing," Mira argued, "the ship will continue to destroy our colonies." They showed no interest in diplomacy. "But if we fight them," countered another member, "we become like them. We become like humans." The room fell silent at those words. Frank saw the fear in their eyes, fear that they would become a species that solved problems through violence. Olivia stepped forward again. Respectfully, she said there is a difference between fighting to conquer and fighting to protect. We humans have done both in our history and have learned the difference. What I am proposing is purely defensive. She activated a holographic display showing her battle plan. It was elegant and precise, designed to disable artisanal ships with minimal casualties on either side. "Our goal is not to destroy the ship," Olivia explained. "It's to show them that attacking the council worlds isn't worth the cost. Once they understand this, we can try diplomacy again." The council voted by a narrow margin to accept the human proposal. 10 days later, Admiral Martinez led a small fleet to the border where the ship was attacking. 6 human ships joined 20 sea-unsil ships, forming a defensive line around a vulnerable colony. Lisa and Frank watched from the council station as the fleet took position. They knew that humanity's future in the galaxy could depend on what happened next. "Do you think this will work?" Lisa asked softly. Frank watched the human ships move in perfect formation, their crews ready for battle after years of training. "Yes," he said, "but I'm not sure the council is ready for what it's about to see." As he spoke, sensors detected a large group of ships entering the system. The battle that would change galactic history was about to begin. Admiral Olivia Martinez stood on the bridge of her flagship, the U.S. Determination. 32 ships had entered the system and were moving towards the colony. The combined human-alien fleet waited in defensive formation. "All ships report ready," the admiral told his first officer. Olivia nodded. She spent the last week training the council's crews in basic combat tactics. They learned quickly, but never faced a real battle. "Open a channel for all ships," she ordered. When the line opened, she spoke clearly. "This is Admiral Martinez. Remember your training. Stay in formation. Support each other. We're not here to destroy the ship, just to show them that it's not worth attacking this colony. Good luck." The ships approached without responding to any attempts at communication. They moved in a tight group, their black hooves absorbing the light from the nearby star. Their weapons were reported to the sensor officer. Olivia gave the order. "Execute Battle Plan Alpha." What followed was unlike anything the Council species had ever seen. The human ships moved with incredible coordination, dividing the formation of ships. Council ships followed, protected by human vessels that took the brunt of enemy fire. At the Council station, the leaders watched the battle through a live broadcast. Frank and Lisa stayed with them, explaining what they were seeing. "Admiral Martinez is using a tactical what we call divide and conquer," Frank explained. "By dividing the enemy force, it prevents them from concentrating their fire." The council members watched in silence as the human ships performed maneuvers that seemed impossible. They rolled in turn, always presenting their strongest shields to the enemy, while aiming at the ship's weapons and engines. "Why aren't they aiming for the center of enemy ships?" asked Krell. "Because our goal is not to kill," Lisa explained. "It is to deactivate them without unnecessary loss of life." Olivia directed the battle calmly and efficiently. When 3 spaceships advanced and headed for the colony, she dispatched a small group quickly to intercept them. When a council ship was heavily damaged, she ordered 2 human vessels to cover its retreat. Back on the bridge, Olivia received a message from a council captain whose ship had been saved by a human vessel that suffered extensive damage in its place. "Why did your ship risk itself for us?" the alien asked. "That's what allies do," Olivia replied simply. "We protect each other." After 2 hours of fighting, the battle was over. 7 artisanal ships were destroyed when they refused to retreat. 15 were incapacitated and adrift in space. The rest floated back to the ship's territory. The human council fleet lost 3 ships and suffered damage to 12 others. While the fleet secured the area, Olivia ordered rescue operations for the disabled vessel's crews. "They may be our enemies," she told her officers, "but they are still living beings." Images of the battle quickly spread throughout the council space. Species that had lived in peace for centuries watched in awe as humans demonstrated combat tactics developed over thousands of years of warfare. Council leaders were conflicted. Human intervention saved the colony and possibly prevented further ship attacks, but the efficiency with which humans fought was frightening. They knew exactly what to do. Mir said during an emergency meeting, "Every maneuver, every formation." It was as if they had fought hundreds of battles before. Frank told them calmly, "Throughout our history, we have fought many wars. We made terrible mistakes, but we also learned how to protect those who cannot protect themselves." As the damaged ships returned to the municipal station for repairs, Admiral Martinez prepared his report. She knew that the battle had shown the Council the best and worst of humanity, our capacity for violence, but also our willingness to put ourselves at risk. For others, the galaxy would never see humans the same way again. A week after the battle with the ship, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. The main chamber was packed with council representatives of all stripes. The topic was simple but important. What to do with humans? Ambassador Lisa Clark sat in the center of the room, feeling all eyes on her. She spent days preparing for this meeting, knowing that humanity's future in the galaxy would be decided here. Zalter, the leader of the council, spoke first. We convened this session to discuss what many call the human problem. His assistance against the ship was valuable, but his military capabilities raised serious concerns. The debate began immediately. Some council members praised the humans for their help. Others have warned of the danger of allowing a species with such warlike tendencies to move freely across the galaxy. They saved our colony, argued Mira, the gas-based council member who supported the joint operation. Without human intervention, thousands of people would have died. But at what cost? Counter Krell, the reptilian leader who has always been suspicious of humans. We have invited a predatory species into our peaceful community. Its entire history is built on war and conquest. The arguments continued for hours. Some have suggested quarantining Earth and human colonies, allowing no further expansion. Others have proposed strict monitoring of all human ships. The most extreme voices called for the complete removal of humans from council space. As the debate heated up, Lisa asked for permission to speak. When granted, she walked to the center of the chamber and looked around at the alien faces. I understand your fears, she began. You've seen what humans can do in battle. You learned about our violent history, but you only saw one side of humanity. She activated a holographic display showing images of Earth, children playing, scientists working, artists creating, people helping each other after disasters. Yes, we fight wars. Lisa continued. Yes, we develop weapons and tactics that scare you. But we also create music, art, and literature. We develop medicines and technologies to improve lives. We fight to end suffering and injustice. She paused, looking directly at Krell. You fear that we will bring war to your peaceful galaxy. But, as you have seen, we can also bring protection to those who cannot defend themselves. The council members listened in silence. Lisa knew she was fighting for humanity's place among the stars. I propose a compromise, she said. Humanity will share our defensive knowledge with the council. We will help train security forces and develop protection systems. In return, we agreed to restrictions on our military activities. We will not go to war except under strict council supervision. The room filled with whispers as the species discussed the proposal among themselves. Some seemed interested, others still suspicious. An older council member named Voss, who had been silent until now, stood up to speak. He was from one of the council's founding species and was highly respected. I've studied Earth's history since humans joined us, he said. Yes, they fought terrible wars. But they also demonstrated the ability to learn from their mistakes to overcome their violent past. The ship attack showed us that our galaxy is not as peaceful as we believe. Maybe we need humans more than we want to admit. The debate continued for another day. Eventually, the board took a vote. The result was close. 27 species in favor of Lisa's proposal, 25 against. Zalter announced the decision. Humans will continue to be part of the galactic community, but under new protocols that will govern their military activities. Ambassador Clark, your government must agree to these terms if Earth is to maintain its place on the council. Lisa nodded, feeling relief wash over her. It wasn't a complete victory, but humanity would have a chance to prove its worth. When the session ended, Krell approached her. I voted against you, he said bluntly. I still don't trust humans, but I hope you prove me wrong. We will, Lisa promised. Just give us a chance. 6 months after the council's vote, Earth formally signed what became known as the War Protocols. These new rules were simple but strict. Humans could not wage war except under direct council supervision. Human ships could carry defensive weapons, but needed special permission to use them. All military technology had to be registered with the council. In return, Earth became the center of the new Galactic Defense Academy. Here, humans would train the council's security forces in defensive tactics. The academy was built in orbit around Earth, a massive station where species from across the galaxy could learn from space. Human military aetialists. Admiral Olivia Martinez was named the academy's first director. On the opening day, she was in front of representatives of 50 different species. We will teach them to protect, not conquer, she told them. You will learn the difference between fighting for power and fighting for peace. Frank Delgado became the head of the Academy's history department. His job was to teach alien students about human conflicts to help them understand the lessons Earth had learned from centuries of war. To avoid war, You have to understand it, he said in the first class. Human history is full of terrible mistakes, but also of courage and sacrifice. At first, many species on the council were reluctant to send students to the academy. They feared that learning human warfare tactics would change their peaceful cultures. But after a second artisanal attack was successfully defended by academy graduates, more species began to participate. Human military history has become a mandatory study for all council security forces. They learned about ancient battles, like Thermopylae, and modern conflicts, like the World Wars. They studied the strategies of great generals and the mistakes of failed ones. But they also learned about the Geneva Conventions, about the rules of engagement designed to protect civilians, about the difference between necessary force and cruelty. Humans have taught not only how to fight, but also when not to fight. 5 years later, Captain Paul Martinez, Olivia's son, stood on the bridge of the CSS Guardian, the first mixed security ship. His crew included council members from 15 different species, all academy graduates. Captain, we detected a distress signal coming from a colony in Sector 7. Your first officer reported null and void. Set course immediately, Paul ordered. Prepare defensive systems, but do not turn on weapons unless authorized. As the Guardian traveled to the colony, Paul thought about how much had changed. Humans were still viewed with caution by many species on the council, but also with increasing respect. Wartime protocols remained in place, but evolved from restrictions to guidelines. The galaxy has learned a difficult truth. Peace was not just the absence of conflict, but something that sometimes needed to be actively defended. And humans, with their long history of warfare, have proven to be the best teachers of this lesson. When the Guardian arrived at the colony, they found a simple misunderstanding between the colonists and a passing merchant ship. No weapons were needed, just careful negotiation. Paolo was happy. He learned both sides of his heritage. From his human ancestors, he inherited the ability to fight when necessary. With the advice, he learned patience to avoid fights whenever possible. Back on Earth, Lisa Clark, now retired from her role as ambassador, sat with Tal Tor in a garden overlooking the Pacific Ocean. The council leader came to Earth for the Academy's 5th anniversary celebration. Did you ever imagine it would work this way? Tal Tor asked. Humans teaching peace through their knowledge of war. Lisa smiled. Our history has made us good at fighting, but it has also taught us the value of peace. We just needed an opportunity to show both sides. In the sky above them, ships from across the galaxy arrived for the celebration. Humanity has found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as reluctant warriors and hopeful peacemakers. The protocols of war remained in place, a reminder of humanity's dangerous potential, but they also became a framework for new understanding. Sometimes knowing how to fight was the best way to avoid this.